I believe there are universal themes that we all
Huh.
have a connection to. Just questioning where we are, understanding our roots, and trying to figure out where we need to go. And it's all told through this adventure and through this character and the characters that he meets. So I think these are people that are relatable. These are people that we can have conversations with, that we can imagine in our brains as we're reading about them. And that's
Yeah.
ultimately what I want to do with the audience is have a conversation. You know, it's definitely like Christian themed. I believe folks who aren't necessarily Christian or who are more in a secular space will appreciate the journey, will appreciate the adventure, and will appreciate kind of just the connection, the human connection that this character ultimately finds with the different people that he meets as he's going from being a boy into a man, which is a universal thing that we all go through.
Exclusive interviews, global voices, real stories.
So today on the podcast, we got a guest by the name of Jesus. Could you tell us about yourself?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. So I'm a writer and I just released my debut novel, Escape from Natura Meta, which is a really exciting time because I come from a long time of experiencing playwriting, screenplays, and I was very
Yeah,
much in a secular space in terms of the work that I was putting out, both in the kinds of writings and plays that I was doing, and also the films that I put out because I wrote a screenplay and I produced it and I shot it in Mexico. And it
yeah,
was released a few years ago. It's still available. It's out there. And this novel represents a transition for me in terms of the type of voice and the kinds of stories that I want to put out into the world. And Escape from Natura Meta is a dystopian story, and it takes place hundreds of years from now after many great wars. And now what's left are just strips of the United States, the Midwest. I'm from the Midwest, so I'm representing my
yeah,
my my roots here. And the South, you see like tribes in Louisiana and Texas, and all the way down to strips of Mexico. So that's why I'm
yeah.
here. I'm looking forward to talking about my debut novel, Escape from Natura Meta.
Okay. So you had your first short story published at just 7 years old in your Chicago elementary school newspaper. Do you remember what it was about and how that early success shaped you as a storyteller?
I do remember it's
Yeah,
a great memory of mine. I basically just responded to Mr. Rosales. That was my first grade teacher,
yeah,
who invited us to write, and we were reading a lot. And I wrote this short story about a little bunny who finds a gold coin and a monkey who tries to take it away from him, and he gets his gold coin back. I still have it. I still have the school newspaper
yeah.
um, from my elementary school, and it has the story in there. And it was my first just inkling of understanding the power of words. And as a writer, understanding that people will react to those words. You know, it was just like
In the
a very, very formidable and important moment in my own development.
okay. So from that young writer in Chicago to an award-winning playwright and filmmaker, how would you describe the evolution of your creative voice over the years?
I would say that I've been developing my craft for the whole time I've been writing. I think anytime you're putting word to paper, you're consistently developing your craft. And the kinds of things that I was interested in exploring early on in my career, and I'm talking now at this time, you know, I'm out of school. I am figuring out my life in New York City, you know, as a struggling artist, trying to figure it out. And I'm beginning to get my plays produced. And those plays are really exploring issues around gender ideology, religion, race, you know, all these kinds of different issues that at that time were really important to me. And I had a very kind of specific lens. um, I would describe it as a very kind of radical left lens. Those were the bubbles that I was growing, developing my work in. And all through my plays, I was fortunate enough to get some residencies. I got some of my plays produced in New York City, and I was, developing a name, developing a fan base, developing people that were supporting my work,
Yeah.
and then I decided to do some production work on television. I did some production work for Spanish language television. And through that work, I was able to develop as a screenwriter because I was hired as a screenwriter through this independent production company. And through that experience, I did my own screenplay. And then I decided to go fully independent. And I
Yeah.
did my own movie as a producer, as a screenwriter, as a director. And that particular project really kind of held me to the fire in the sense of developing my craft fully, not just as a writer, but just completely as a creative person. For anyone out there who's ever done a film, tried to accomplish a film, it's a full on, like 150% of your life has to be dedicated to that. And you have to develop a team. It's like you're really a CEO of a company, And I was
Yeah.
able to fill it, do it. My film did the film festival circuit. I was beginning to, develop connections and networks and getting some media coverage around it. And that particular story is a same-sex love story between two men. And I was still exploring a lot of things between like gender ideology, things like that. I was very much in a secular mindset.
Yeah.
And after that, I began to really just kind of question the kinds of stories that I wanted to tell the world. And at that time, also, I began to have my own kind of return to faith fully because I was very much away from my faith. I'm currently a practicing Catholic. I grew up Catholic. And through all these experiences of developing myself as a writer, I was very much in a secular world. Spiritually, I was exploring. I was a certified yoga instructor. I was exploring Hinduism, Buddhism, any kind of new age thing, occultism. I was all for that. Anything that wasn't Christian, basically, I was like all for.
Yeah.
During after my film, I was like, I want to focus on my writing, what kind of story. And I've always wanted to do a children's book. So I put out a children's book. Pepito Has a Doll, which is available out there. And that was also giving me a lot of positive coverage and positive responses from folks. And at this time, there was also kind of my return to my faith and return to Christianity fully. And that also just began to open my mind to the kinds of stories that I want to put out in the world. And the film that I did in Mexico City was in Spanish, and it received enough positive attention, and I received enough uh, um, positive feedback that I was working on my second film. By this time, I am no longer in New York City. I moved to Chicago full time. I have like this need to be home. I'm from Chicago. Most of my family's still here, and I really needed I need home. And I came back home, and I was like, I had enough budget. I had enough backing to do my second film. So I was going to do my second film, which was going to be shot in Chicago, all in English. And 2 weeks before I was set to shoot, as you know, anyone who's doing a film out there, once you get to the point of shooting, that means you have a budget, you have a team, you're all set to go. But
Yeah.
something in me throughout this whole process, Kevin, was like, is this the story that you want to tell? This was another love story, pretty similar to the one I shot in Mexico, but now it was
Yeah.
going to be in English and it was going to be a very different setting, an urban setting in the US, right, in Chicago. And I really began to question, is this the kind of story I want to tell? And 2 weeks before I was set to shoot,
Yeah.
I did what everyone in the professional world tells you not to do when you're beginning to build a name for yourself. I basically stopped the project. I decided I did not want to do it, that it was not the kind of story I wanted to put out into the world. And I really had like a moment of self-reflection as a writer, as a creator, as a creative individual of the kinds of things that I wanted to put out into the world. And by this time, I'm like stepping back into the church. I'm becoming a practicing Catholic. I'm taking on the sacraments that I hadn't taken on as a young person, and I'm continuing to learn and take the adult classes to do the sacraments that are part of the Catholic Church. And it's how this became kind of the seed, this moment
Yeah.
became the seed of my debut novel, Escape from Natura Meta. I really focused on my writing. And for me, one of the greatest challenges for any kind of writer, no matter what kind of format you focus on, is writing a novel, like writing like a full on fiction novel. And
Yeah.
I wanted to take on that challenge. So that's how it happened. And that's how I came to write Escape from Natura Meta.
Okay. So you've worked in television, film, theater, and literature. How has moving between these different mediums influenced your writing style?
I grew up watching a lot of television, like sitcoms, Spanish language TV. Like my mom would watch Mexican soap operas. So melodrama was also part of my viewing experience. And I always
Yeah.
just found it fascinating that like how these storylines, no matter what kind of different storylines you're consuming, can really like move you, and impact and entertain you, make you laugh, just have you all these different kinds of emotions and roller coasters. So I wanted to experience that on the other side in the sense of not just consuming it, but creating it, And I think what I
Yeah.
was consuming myself on television, on film, and reading, like really reading, I think that was the core part of just, like one of the first books I read as a young adult. I remember uh, the Diary of Anne Frank being assigned in my freshman like high school class,
Yeah.
and just writing in the first person, and Escape from Natura Meta is written in the first person. It's a different kind of book, right? Obviously, Anne Frank's story is an autobiography, whereas what I'm writing is a fictionalized this story of a boy in a dystopian world.
Yeah.
But that writing style really impacted me as a reader, and that kind of began kind of the journey of the kinds of things that I wanted to explore. And theater was like a passion, which is how I began to write in theater. And I was living in New York, so like that's like the mecca of theater in the United States. And it's such a powerful way to write through dialogue, because most theater is about dialogue, right? Like
Yeah.
developing communication and scenes between two characters or more characters. So that's how I really developed kind of my initial voice. I think to this day, I feel like I am a strong writer of dialogue. And I've been developing kind of the further skills that you need as a writer to really write kind of a novel, right? It's like the descriptive part, the transitions. So all of these things have helped me develop my voice. I also did screenwriting, which is also a dialogue dominant format. So it's a format that I'm comfortable in. And I wanted to further develop my craft, challenge myself. I think I am always ambitious in the sense of challenging the kinds of projects I take on. And as a writer, there's so many different formats that you can do. I began as a playwright, so I know I can do dialogue. And then I was like, I love children's books, so why not do a children's book? And
Yeah.
that's more of like a visual format, right? So I really had to depend a lot on not just the story that I was putting out there, but my collaboration with the illustrator that I was working with. And that was much more of a collaborative process. All of this came together, and I felt like I had enough of the tools in my tool belt to write a
Yeah.
novel, and to go
Yeah.
ahead and do it. And here we are. We have my first novel out there, and I'm also, in the midst of writing the follow up to this novel right now. So I believe that fiction writing, novel writing is where I'm at right now, and I am looking forward to creating more within this format.
So this is a dystopian novel that also integrates Christian themes. How did you balance those elements without losing the heart of the story?
Well, I feel like I focus on the experience of the character. You know, this character, Gabriel, is born in a tribe called Natura Meta, which is why the title is Escape from Natura Meta. And those two words are Latin words, they mean Mother Nature. This is a tribe that does not believe in any kind of spirituality. They believe that the state has the answer for everything that is a human problem, and they've put science forward completely, right? And I'm like writing this post COVID, where across the globe, I was really taken by the amount of information, misinformation that was out there, how easily we were manipulated, how easily we were mandated to do things,
Yeah,
that didn't actually have any scientific backing, but they use science as a way to manipulate us or to have us do different things that ultimately became about power and control. So that was in my brain, as I was thinking of this particular tribe, Natura Meta. Gabriel is born in this tribe. He's not born with parents. This is a tribe that does not believe in the family structure. Kind of
yeah,
anything goes in terms sexually, but they don't have like a traditional family structure. Children are born in barracks. But as he's living his day to day, he also is visited by an ancestor through dreams, an abuela, a grandmother, who comes into his life and teaches him about his roots and teaches him about where he's coming from. Even though he's in this tribe that doesn't have a faith system, his
yeah,
grandmother teaches him about God, teaches him about his his own ancestry and his own like, kind of a spiritual makeup. We have like biological DNA. So she's talking
yeah,
about the spiritual DNA in his body. His tribe has hidden faith books, the Bible is hidden. He ultimately begins to question what he's being told. And I think it's really reflective of kind of my own journey of questioning everything that I'd been taught and really having a void and not really believing the things that I was spewing, the things that I was sharing with the world. So he ends up escaping his tribe and he has to go because he ends up being a person that's kind of a rebel in his tribe, and that's not seen very well, right? So he has to escape, not just because he's starting to question, but he's also trying to find the truth.
yeah.
Is what he's dreaming real? Are the messages that his mother, like, what is this God person that they're talking about? So he ends up escaping and he ends up meeting different tribes. Like he goes to Louisiana, there's a Creole tribe there that's a Christian tribe. Even though they don't have a Bible, they don't have like an actual structure, they've been keeping an oral tradition. Like he finds, through the help of this tribe, he ends up learning so much and taking steps to becoming a man, and then he ends up in Texas because he's given a mission by his grandmother that's still appearing to him. And in Texas, he ends up, getting enslaved by some cowboys, and then there he has some more teachings, and then he has to find his way to Mexico. His grandmother's like, you're going to find what you need to find in my ancestral home, which is your home. So he keeps going south, he finds his way south. So the book really narrates that journey, which for
Yeah.
me, even though there are Christian themes throughout the story and it's central to the story, I believe there are universal themes that we all have
Both.
a connection to. Just questioning where we are, understanding our roots, and trying to figure out where we need to go. And it's all told through this adventure and through this character and the characters that he meets. So I think these are people that are relatable. These are people that we can have conversations with, that we can imagine in our brains as we're reading about them. And that's
Yeah.
ultimately what I want to do with the audience, is have a conversation. It's definitely like Christian themed. I believe folks who aren't necessarily Christian, or who are more in a secular space, will appreciate the journey, will appreciate the adventure, and will appreciate kind of just the connection, the human connection that this character ultimately finds with the different people that he meets as he's going from being a boy into a man, which is a universal thing that we all go through.
So do you see writing as part of your ministry or mission in this stage of your life?
I believe it's a gift that I've been given from God, and I'm using that gift to communicate stories with an audience. If that's a ministry, I think so. I don't know. I'm still developing what that actually is in terms of like discerning my own vocation and really trying to figure it out. For now, I know that this is a gift I have, and it's a gift that I want to share, and that Escape from Natura Meta is the kind of story that I want to share, and which is why I'm continuing to write. There's a second part to this. It's a series, and I'm in the middle of writing it, and I have such joy in writing it and exploring these themes that yes, it's what I believe this is what I'm supposed to do right now, and I'm supposed to share it with an audience that hopefully appreciates it, and even if they don't appreciate it, at the very least they're open to the storytelling that I'm sharing.
So what's one thing you hope readers carry with them after closing the final page in the novel?
I hope they're moved and inspired by the character's journey, Gabriel's
Yeah,
journey. And there are a lot of different layers. I think depending on their own particular kind of situation, I think Catholics will appreciate and understand very specific kind of symbols that I utilize throughout the story. Christians in general will appreciate kind of the Christian theological layers that I put throughout the story. And I think folks
yeah.
that are more in the secular space will likely appreciate the journey that this character takes and the challenges that he overcomes to become the man that he becomes at the end of the story. So I pray and I hope that people who take this journey with me have an adventure spirit, that they can imagine this world, this dystopian world as they're reading it, that
Yeah.
they connect with the characters and that they have they see themselves in these characters and take the journey with me. That's ultimately what I hope, that they take the journey with me, and when they close the book, that they feel satisfied with the journey that they took.
One last thing. If you could give advice to your 7-year-old self who just got published, what would it be?
I would say keep writing, keep loving yourself, keep doing what you're doing, because you are going to find your true voice, and you're going to need to go through a lot of ups and downs, but keep doing it because it's worth it, and you're going to see a wonderful voice ahead of you. And I love you. I would tell myself that I love myself as a 7-year-old.
Okay, okay. So thanks for coming on and sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the invitation.
Yes. So when we have the blog article set up and the interview published, we'll send it to you so you could
Great.
share
Thank you.
everything. Okay. So have a good rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you, Kevin. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.